I'm taking you deep into the artificial world in this chapter of COP. Join me as I take a trip down memory lane and bring you all the way into our present world of artificial intelligence. How has AI affected us as humans, and how does it affect the way we process and see beyond what's presented to us? I'll be discussing this and much more on the podcast For a Purpose, on Purpose. Hey, what is going on? It is David J. Coleman here with another chapter of Coleman on Purpose, and I am ready to open up another can of bots. I guess I could say that in this episode because we're talking about the artificial world in this chapter of Coleman on Purpose. I wanted to kind of stray away from like normal things we would think about, but things that are kind of in our face right now, but we don't really want to think about it. So I wanted to kind of delve into that because that is also part of the world we live in. So we sometimes think so realistically that we forget those things. So I wanted to kind of open this up today because, you know, December is kind of like a low-key kind of month because we're going into the winter months and people seem to be a little bit more down sometimes during December time. So sometimes you want to kind of lighten it up a little bit, make people think, but also kind of keep it a little bit light. So like last year I did something about the Wiz, and this year I'm going to do something about the artificial world. We're going to get into some things here. So I'm excited to talk about this chapter here. So let's kind of begin with how I think about the world now. See, I watched a lot of TV when I was younger. So I watched shows or cartoons like The Jetsons and Inspector Gadget. Those were two big cartoons that I used to watch, and The Jetsons was definitely about the future and how we may see the world. Like there were flying cars, people were like sliding into showers and the water would just automatically start. A lot of those things we have right now in the world. That's the most interesting thing, or they're working on it and we're very close to seeing that happen. But we also have things like Inspector Gadget, where you have Penny that was talking on her watch, at which I have a watch now I'm looking at right now that looks quite like hers, except it had like a red band and stuff like that. But it looks quite like that. And when I think about it, I'm like, oh my gosh, we have this stuff that's here right now. And I think about it all the time because I can basically talk to my watch just like Penny did and ask it to do something. And I have to talk very quietly because if I say Siri, I have to like cover my watch right now because if I say the name, it starts talking back sometimes. So I have to refrain from saying it too loud. And that's the crazy part about it. Maybe there is a way I can turn that off on my watch, but I know it's something that I have readily available to me if I need to ask questions, and it'll always have an answer. That's kind of interesting because I guess if you would bring somebody back from like the 50s or the 60s, they would look at this thing like, oh my God, what kind of witchcraft is this on your arm? And it's kind of like that when you think about it, because a lot of stuff that we have now is very advanced and we depend on it quite a lot when we talk about like today and the world that we live in, how we look at everything. I was just watching a movie called, it was on Netflix and it was called Leave the World Behind. It was a movie with Julia Roberts and Mahershala Ali, who I really love him. He was in Moonlight. And there was so much symbolism and things. I like watching movies like that. If you didn't know, like I like watching End of the World movies, 2012, all of that stuff. I love it all. This movie was great. The ending made me mad, but you can go and watch it for yourself and see if it'll make you mad as well. But I was watching this movie and I'm watching all of the things unfold on there. We have Tesla cars that are driving themselves and blocking off highways. And then we have, you know, the phone, like navigation on the phones going out all at the same time. And when I think about stuff like that, I'm like thinking, this could really, really, truly happen to us. Like, that's not a far-fetched thing. So that was kind of blowing me away because, like, things that you usually see sometimes in movies, you begin to see happen in our world. And I'm not going to say too much on that because I'll get too far over into, like, my conspiracy theory type thing because I'm a very conspiracy theory type individual, and I sometimes I think about it and I'm talking to people, or I might like do a flight with somebody and I'm kind of scared to talk about stuff if they start getting into something, and then I want to go further, but I'm like, they're gonna really think I'm crazy if I start talking. So I keep those type of conversations for the people that really truly know me and they know that like I'm not wild, but I have a very imaginative mind. So basically this movie was like something that I mean, it's not very imaginative because half of the stuff is already here in our faces and we're watching it unfold before our eyes. And I think about some of like the alternative worlds that we have now, like Meta. Like when you remember when the metaverse was opening and you can put on those Oculus lenses and like look into a different world and get out of the world that we're living in now. I think about that all the time because there are many ways that we kind of led the way for things like Meta. If you look at the Sims has been around for a very long time. And, Sims was out when I was back, like, I think that was starting like in the maybe 2000s, like late 90s. But Sims was really getting big and it was like an alternate world where you can live out a whole different life there. And now you can put it on your eyes and basically still like that Oculus you can just place on your eyes and you can go to these different places. I don't know too many people that are involved heavily in that, but I know there are some people that do like that alternate universe type thing, or a lot of ways people do that also is through video games and stuff like that. And when I think about it, I see why my parents were so worried back in the day about me watching so much TV or being so involved with video games. I didn't really do too many video games back in the day. I probably did a little bit of Nintendo here. When I had a Sega, I might have done a little bit of Sega there, but always I wasn't always on, doing video games. I used to go outside and have my fun too, but I can definitely see why they kind of feared that type of stuff, like taking over your mind or looking at it in a different way. And I do believe that escaping from the world around you is fine as long as it doesn't involve something that pulls you away from reality 24/7. You have many things that get us wrapped up. And I think about that every day because sometimes I get very wrapped up within Instagram, within Facebook, a lot of different things. Like if there's a new song or something that comes out or music, I like to watch Billboard charts. For some reason, I'm very drawn to like watching the charts and stuff like that, even though I really don't care because I like music if it's good music. It doesn't really matter what charts, but I start to think about things like that and I'm like, oh my gosh, I get so enveloped and wrapped up in it. And then I'm wondering sometimes, like, I'm looking at all this stuff for this long period of time and I'm wondering, like, why am I feeling so drained and why do I feel this type of way right now? It's because I'm involving so much of my world in an artificial world. Yes, I might know the songs. I don't know these people personally from the music that I'm listening to, but I'm so wrapped up in those songs and so wrapped up in those things that I'm causing my whole mood to like shift because I'm like, in this fairy tale world. And I think when I think back to the pandemic, sometimes I think about how much people had to use something else besides what reality was because you could not see that many people. You only either were by yourself or you were with your family 24/7 and you could not go outside of the house too much. And it was like you had to create your own world. You had to do it and have an escape. And we were lucky enough to like, there was no strike back then. Imagine if the SAG strike or whatever had to happen right then and there when the pandemic was going on. We wouldn't have had nothing to watch. I would have, because if I turn this camera around right now and point it towards this wall over here, I have millions of DVDs of millions of series that I can rewatch. And I did spend my time doing that because I like to watch older stuff. That's like my artificial world that I used to escape to. And so when I look at those things, I'm like, man, there really was not much that you could do. So it got us more in the habit of getting on our phones or trying to find information. Like it kind of adapted us for even depending on it even more. When I think about even like when I go to church now, you see people there, but it's not really like it used to be because people can rely on online television and different things like that. And I think about that all the time because it's really fun to me. It's really funny to me how we can scramble to find ways to remove the human factor from things, and they do it in jobs as well. So we have like my job. Let's take my job for an example. I'm in the aviation field. So I'm flying around all day and airlines are starting to like incorporate things that we have to become more dependent on computers or the things that we hold in our hands or stuff like that. We're not going and physically printing out anything or doing anything. It's all within our hands reach. And then we have other things where it's like, I just looked on the other day and one of the other airlines I think many other of the other airlines did this as well, but they're incorporating self-serve food when you get on the plane. Of course, that probably wouldn't eliminate the full service that we do on the plane, but it's taking away the factor of us connecting with people. They're like, okay, just we just want to come on the plane and sleep. So we don't want to even interact with y'all, or you don't even need to, like, some people don't even come on the plane and say hi. So it's like this is going to even further people like, I'm just going to get my food and go put my headphones on and go to sleep, like, or do whatever. Of course people come on there to sleep and rest and stuff, but still there is a human factor and a human interaction to these things, and that's how our world was built. When we had first had trains, when we had boats, there was always a conductor or somebody introducing themselves, or there was always some type of factor. People were communicating with one another, and I feel like the more and more they pull that human factor out of jobs, the more we just become dependent on these machines. And it kind of scares me a little bit when I think about that, because it's like we are no longer wanting to have that human interaction with one another, and we become even more distant, and that's not definitely not good for people like me. I've seen myself over the years become a lot more comfortable even living here by myself. I'm more comfortable being here by myself now, but I still long for that human interaction. You still want to have those times where you can go and you can meet up with people. So I do have the select people that I'm around, that I go and I hang out and do the things, but I would like some more of that at some point in time. But we'll have to see when that comes along, because it's like you never really know what a person's intentions or different things are even in meeting, and it's made us even more aware of that by what we've read, what we see, what's being fed to us through these machines that are on here. They make us even more fearful sometimes about even engaging of anything outside of what we normally know, and that is definitely not the way to live. I watched something on YouTube. It was an interview between Tia Mowry and another guy, Sacred. I forgot his name. I will bring it up, or I'll post it below, or just ask me about it and I will let you know his name. But they did an interview where they were talking about both of them basically just living life, or learning to live life, more full and more free and not as confined. And I think that's what everyone really should be doing at many times, but it feels like in many ways they're trying to not really, they want you to live life alone, but they don't want you to socialize outside of, live life with other people. And I think it's very important, and it's very crucial for that. But I think that there needs to be many changes in the way that we approach introducing all of this newfound, not even newfound stuff. This stuff could have been around for 20 or 30 years and we never knew about it. But like I said, these are the things that they are presenting, and it's coming at such a rapid pace that nobody really has time to really adjust to what it is. It's just being thrown at us, and we're like, okay, it's here, deal with it. We got to do what we have to do. So I think about that all the time. And I look at things like, even with Amazon, I saw recently that they started adding robots that are doing the job for the people that are like handling your packages and stuff like that. They are robots that they have set up in Amazon spaces to move your boxes everywhere that they need to go. And these things are like humans, picking up, moving, putting them down, and all of that. And I'm just like, oh my goodness, when is, this is, they're taking away a lot of what we do. And I really don't know how they're going to replace it with something. If we're losing those type of jobs because machines are doing things, what is there going to be in place to do? We're just going to leave us a happy little, happy home and just sit and wait for everything to come? It's very strange, but I'm watching it unfold right before our eyes, and we just get used to it. So I think we are getting comfortable to many things that we don't even realize that we're giving up many times. We're giving up some of our human factors to us when we do allow those things. And I'm a guilty culprit too. I'm sitting here right here with you with this mic that I'm going to send out this podcast to you with this computer in front of me, which I've written my notes on. I didn't even write it on a piece of paper. My pastor said the other day something very interesting as we go into our new year, while we're getting ready to amp up for the new year. He told us to take out a journal and write it down when things happen. Like if we dream about something, write it on down on a piece of paper. And I said, that's very interesting, because I usually would either type into something when I have a dream that I remember or something like that, or I would talk into a voice recorder to record my voice. But a lot of times that's still giving into this thing. We have to get back to some of those basics. We must. Like, I love the fact that we have computers that we can type, send stuff off and all of that. But there is something that is so genuine about when we learn to write. Those are the things that it was built that was built on. There's nothing is going into the cloud when we're writing stuff down on a sheet of paper. It might go into a manuscript or a book later or something, but you have an original copy of something that's happened. Now, I don't like to write too much because I have very sloppy handwriting, but at times it is definitely needed, and I even have to get back to that myself when I really think about that a lot of the times. And I just want to say, like, it is so important that we don't lose the human factor when we think about this world. And I'm looking at and remembering even me going to a hotel and seeing a robotic dog moving around when we walked in the door, like filming us as we came in. It like keeps track. It's like instead of having the cameras on the top of the ceiling, there are robotic dogs walking around like dogs. This is when we're in Vegas, and I'm just looking like, what is really it scared the mess out of me. I was like, this is really, really wild. And as you're looking at these things happen, I just don't want us to get so far gone that we don't remember who and what we are on the inside. And I just feel like we are giving up a lot of those things sometimes without even knowing it. And I want us to progress as a people. And I was telling a friend of mine, because I relate everything back to creativity sometimes. It always goes back, just like my last podcast. If you get a chance to go and listen to that chapter, it was all about the mind of a creative. It's a really great chapter. Please go and listen to it. But it talks about just those the create I was talking to him about the creative factors of things, and I was like, our world is not even keeping up fast enough to know how quickly we are progressing. And I was telling him, like, we have all of these things that are around us right now, and it's like there's something that is planted in, like a movie. Let's take a movie for example. We have a movie that's coming out, like the movie I was just talking about earlier. This movie has stuff in it that's not even that far in the future. Back in the day, there used to be things that were thought like 1,000 years ahead of time, or like 50 years ahead of time, and it'd be put out. So I know there were some things that we probably had back in the 60s and 70s that were put into movies that are now here, but I feel like we're so rapidly advancing that the imagination of what we could have we can't even catch up to what's here now. It's like nobody was thinking about what could be here right now from those 70s movies, and we're like just already like, okay, what can we think of that can get us more creative, or it could be more original, or we don't have that many ideas. That's why you see repeats of movies and different things like that. There's no creativity anymore sometimes when it comes to that. And when you see something that's so creative and so inventive, you're like, oh my God, it blows our mind, because how could somebody think of that? But it comes from whoever those people were. I bet you 9 times out of 10, they said they pulled themselves outside of what was going on right here and said, let me get away from all of this so I can focus on what I can see in the future, or what I could imagine that is up there. And I think about that all the time. I'm like, if we pulled away from more of this, I don't do it enough. But if we pulled away more from what's here in front of us, we could actually tap into some things that could be life-changing things, that could be something that's so inventive and so creative that it's something that won't be used maybe right now, but could be used in the future when they go back and look at it. I think about all of those things that all has to do with even purpose, even what we're here to do. There are certain people that are in those places, but because of the distractions that we have all over the place, we don't really get to the place where we need to be so we can think of those things. And I need to do it myself. I'm not no different than everybody else, but I have all of these downloads sometimes, and I'm like, start using these, David. Maybe start using some of these downloads and maybe pull away a little bit. But that's why I am working on getting myself better, trying to prepare myself for even more of my purpose. You know what I'm saying? That's what we really have to be doing a lot of times. We still have to take time to relax and enjoy life. We have to be driven. Yes, we can be innovative with everything, but please use your brains to imagine new things that are thousands of years ahead of us sometimes. That's how we have the dreamers and the inventors like Disney and all of these people that have made these incredible things that we see here. They had an imagination, and we've lost a lot of that because everything that we're seeing right now is already blowing our mind, but nobody's thinking advanced of what we could have from all of this. Yes, there are some people that are out there. Let me not say everybody. There are some people out there that have those mindsets already, but a lot of them are not paid attention to because it's like, okay, let's just deal what we have here now because we're so far ahead. We have to handle this business right here. We don't have time to think about that far ahead. But nobody ever did that way back in the day. They weren't just concerned about right now, they were worried about what they could do in the future as well. That has a lot to do with purpose, you guys. And that's what I think about a lot of the times when I think about this world and the artificial, everything that's so artificial around us sometimes. That's why I still hold DVDs or vinyls. I'm trying to go back. I'm trying to go back to like take it back a little bit. There's nothing wrong with having a little bit of old stuff around you. It's okay. It's not going to hurt you. It's not going to harm you for keeping some things. We can progress, but it's still good to have some remnants of things that we can still hold and grasp and things that we can still talk to and touch tangibly. It's really still a great thing to have. And so I think about all of those things, and sometimes I say we find purpose when we do think beyond what life will be for the future, but you cannot rush the process by pushing things forth that we can't even grasp or handle. So I always say this, and I wrote this down because I said we are always trying to just push things out, push things out, push things out. Just like we push out when we hold our phones and there's a new update that's pushed out to us, and we can't even master the updates that we had on our phone like 2 updates ago. So it's always great to have that. And that's kind of what I do. Like this, don't hate on me, Android people. Please don't hate on me. It's not because I'm an Apple user and I have all Apple products or anything like that. I'm just saying Android does put out things first. They push it and they let it go. I do like the fact sometimes that Apple waits, sees how Android does whatever they're doing. Of course, their Android is the one that's pushing it out, but then Apple takes it and they make it a little bit better. They modify it, they make it better. They see the mistakes that were made with the Android and then they bring it to the Apple consumer. And I do like that about Apple. Now, if y'all want to give me, a brand, come on, Apple, I'm here for it. But I'm just saying that's what I notice. And I think that's kind of how we have to take the world, even though I do think Apple speeds things along as well, because they have to think forward, but I think that they do take their time to release things, and that's kind of how I think the world should work. And when it comes to being creative or creating things, I feel like that is how we should be as well. Take your time with things because that has the best results. Sometimes things that are rushed are not always the best product, and so we can't treat our lives rushed all the time. We do have to slow down, realize what we have here, work on making that what it is and making it better, and then go from there. That's how I always have thought about just life in general. And that's how we handle our lives in general as well. We go to therapy, we do different things we need to do to better ourselves at the stage we are in right then, which makes us better for the next stage that we have ahead of us. So I always am taking that into consideration when I'm thinking about things. And when I think about all of these things that I've talked about, it brings me back to the movie I, Robot with Will Smith, if you guys remember that. I still believe, like, just like in that movie, the artificial world we're creating around us, it makes us remember ourselves and remember that humans also have a purpose in this world and things that we can bring to this world. I think about how much trust these people in that movie put into these robots. It was just such an idea or a future, but in the end, it took that human mind to come in and try to dismantle those robots getting out of control. And I think about that, and I think as humans, we have to realize the power that we hold within us. Yes, there have been things that have given to, there have been humans that have done wrong and crazy things that we see in the world. And we're like, oh, I just lost all respect for just humankind as a whole but there are so many great things as well. And that's why I try to intake more of the great things that we do besides the negative things as much. It's great to see some of the falls that we've had so we can work on making those better. But I don't try to intake too much to where you think that all humanity as a whole is just doomed just doomed forever. No, I always try to keep a positive mindset that yes, we can be better. There are beautiful decisions that humans make as well. And that's what gives us our power back as human beings and gives us our strength to feel like we're strong enough to continue on. And so when it comes down to it, I really say this, and this is what I'm going to just close this chapter out with. And I wrote it down, so I'm going to read it as I wrote it. It says, we have the real and God-given intelligence that all of these words that were implanted into the machines have, but we just have to stay aware and view our impact with the same amount of awe and beauty as we view the new artificial intelligence that's being built around us. And remember when I said that, it's being built around us. So all of these words that we're saying into these phones or whatever like that, and this information that we've been feeding into these machines, they come from us. So take that power back as humans and say, yes, us, we have the power to change this world with the help of God. We have the help of people that are around us, the community, everyone that's here. We do have that within us because it was built in us. And that's why we are such extraordinary people. And so I just want to let us know, please keep the human factor with things. And this is why I do this. It's on purpose that I'm talking about this. And that ends this chapter of Coleman on Purpose. Make sure you are following me on every single social media platform. If you are looking at this on YouTube, you can go ahead and click that subscribe button above. My YouTube channel is growing and it makes me very excited to have so many great things ahead for the YouTube channel, not just this podcast, so much more. So please go ahead and subscribe to this channel. Also, make sure you're following me on Instagram at DeluxeDave, DeluxeDave, as well as Coleman on Purpose. There's a separate site I have on Instagram, especially for this podcast, where I put things on there as well. Also, make sure you're following me on TikTok. TikTok is another outlet I have when I talk about creativity. That is my TikTok. And so please follow me there. It's at davidj.coleman, or you can follow it on DeluxeDave, or you can also go over to the Coleman on Purpose TikTok site, where I have some things there as well that you can watch from just this podcast on TikTok as well. Please do remember that you are unique, you are loved, and you are created for greatness. Until the next chapter, peace.